There was a time when the earth was filled with people, cities, and activity. Generations had passed since Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden. Families had multiplied. Settlements had grown into thriving communities. Music echoed through the valleys. Craftsmen shaped bronze and iron into tools. Farmers cultivated the land. Humanity was advancing. From a distance, the world may have appeared prosperous, but beneath the surface, something had gone terribly wrong. Violence spread across the earth. The strong oppressed the weak. Greed was celebrated. Justice was ignored.
This is unjust!
Human hearts drifted further and further from their creator. The corruption did not happen all at once. It spread gradually, like a disease moving through an entire generation. Scripture tells us that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart had become continually evil. Imagine a world where selfishness was rewarded, where mercy was seen as weakness, and where few people cared about right and wrong. That was the world Noah lived in. Genesis also records one of the Bible's most mysterious passages. It tells us that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took wives for themselves. The exact meaning of these words has been discussed for thousands of years, and faithful believers have understood them in different ways. What is clear is the result. Humanity continued its downward spiral. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. Whatever their precise nature, they belonged to a generation that was becoming increasingly corrupt and increasingly distant from God. Then Scripture reveals something remarkable. God looked upon the world He had made, the Creator who had spoken light into existence, the one who had formed mankind from the dust of the earth, the one who had called His creation good, and what He saw grieved Him. The grief of a creator watching his beloved creation destroy itself. The grief of a father seeing his children choose darkness over light. The earth had become so corrupt, so filled with violence, that judgment was approaching. Yet even in that darkness, there remained a single light. One man who chose a different path. While others followed the crowd, he followed God. While others ignored their Creator, he sought to walk with Him. His name was Noah. Stories of the Olives presents Noah, the last righteous man. Among all the people living in that generation, Noah stood apart, not because he possessed great wealth or influence, but because he remained faithful when almost everyone else had abandoned God. Scripture describes Noah as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his generation. He walked with God. Those words are easy to read, far more difficult to live, especially in a world where corruption surrounded you on every side. Imagine waking each morning knowing that the values you cherished were mocked by the society around you. Imagine raising a family in a culture that celebrated violence and ignored its Creator. Yet Noah remained steadfast. His faith was not something he practiced only on special occasions. It shaped his daily life. It shaped his family. It shaped the decisions he made when no one else was watching. Noah had a wife who stood beside him and 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Together they formed something increasingly rare in that generation, a household that still honored God. Whenever the noise of the world became overwhelming, Noah often sought solitude. He would leave behind the crowded settlements and climb into the hills where he could pray in peace. There, far from the distractions of daily life, he could reflect, worship, and seek the Lord. On one such day, Noah stood upon a mountainside overlooking the valleys below. In the distance, smoke rose from villages and cities filled with people going about their lives. Children played, merchants traded, families planned for the future. No one suspected that the world was standing on the edge of a great turning point. As Noah prayed, a deep stillness settled over the mountain.
Lord, you are my refuge and my strength. Guide my steps and teach me your ways. Help me remain faithful in a world that has forgotten you.
And the Lord spoke.
The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth, but I will establish my covenant with you. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with pitch. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark. Set a door in its side. Construct it with lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I am bringing floodwaters upon the earth to destroy all flesh in which is the breath of life under heaven. But you shall enter the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you.
Imagine hearing those words. Imagine standing alone before the Creator of heaven and earth as he revealed the coming judgment of an entire world. The Lord was about to entrust Noah with an extraordinary task, one so enormous that it would require years of labor, unwavering faith, and complete obedience. When the encounter ended, the mountain stood as it had before. The valleys below appeared unchanged. The city still bustled with activity. People still laughed, worked, and planned for tomorrow. Yet Noah now carried a message unlike any other person on earth. Judgment was coming. God had spoken, and the future of the world would soon rest upon the obedience of one man. When Noah returned from the mountains, his family immediately sensed that something had changed. His wife was the first to notice it. There was a seriousness in his eyes, unlike anything she had seen before. That evening, as the family gathered together, Noah shared everything the Lord had revealed to him. The coming judgment, the floodwaters, the covenant, and the enormous vessel God had commanded him to build.
And God truly spoke these words to you? I believe him with all my heart.
Noah replied.
Noah, are you certain?
Yes, I am. God has spoken. But how can we build it? We will have faith. What is God's plan?
Questions followed. Many questions. Yet by the end of the evening, one thing had become clear. The family would obey. The next morning, the work began. Trees were cut. Timber was gathered. Foundations were
the lines
prepared.
are straight. Good. Mark the boundaries here.
As the strange project slowly took shape, people began to ask questions. One afternoon, a traveler stopped beside the construction site.
What exactly are you building? An ark.
Noah answered. The man looked around at the dry land, stretching in every direction. Then he laughed.
A ship? Out here?
Shaking his head, he continued on his way. As the years passed, the structure grew larger and larger. So did the curiosity. Stories spread from village to village. The old man building a giant vessel. The man who claimed a flood was coming. One day, a group of onlookers stood watching from a distance. One of them called out, Noah, when is this flood supposed to arrive? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Noah continued working without looking up. The mockery did not stop, but neither did the construction.
Look at that old fool! Building a giant boat in the desert! What a joke!
Years passed. The ark rose higher,
When does the flood
beam
arrive?
by beam, deck by deck. While the world carried on as though nothing would ever change, Noah and his family remained faithful to the task God had given them. And at last, after years of labor, the great vessel stood ready, silent, waiting. Soon the world would witness something no one could explain. The ark stood completed. For years, it had dominated the landscape, a silent testimony to Noah's faith. The earth remained dry, and many people still dismissed Noah's warnings. Then something extraordinary began to happen. Animals started appearing. At first it was only a few. Birds descended from the sky. Small animals emerged from the surrounding countryside. Then more came, and more. Creatures of every kind began moving toward the ark. Deer, sheep, camels, lions. Pairs of animals that would normally avoid one another traveled in the same direction. The sight was unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. People abandoned their work to watch. Families gathered along the roads. Children pointed in amazement.
Father, look!
A young boy tugged at his father's robe as two powerful lions calmly walked past. Every path seemed to lead toward the ark. Every creature moved with purpose, as though responding to a call that only they could hear. Even some of Noah's harshest critics fell silent. The impossible was unfolding before their eyes. As the animals entered the ark, Noah continued to warn those around him. The years of preparation were over. The time to choose was running out. But most people refused to listen. They had ignored the warning for too long. When the last animals had entered, Noah and his family stepped aboard. 8 people, the future of humanity, resting within a single vessel. Outside, crowds watched from a distance. Then something remarkable happened. The great door of the ark began to close. Slowly, deliberately. The moment carried a sense of finality that could not be ignored. For decades, the ark had stood as an invitation. Now it stood as a refuge. The door shut. Noah and his family were inside. The door was closed, yet the sky remained clear. For a brief moment, it seemed as though nothing would happen. The crowds returned home. The mockers laughed once more, and the world carried on as it always had. But judgment was no longer approaching. It had arrived. For 7 days, nothing happened. The ark stood silent upon the earth. Its great door remained shut. Inside, Noah and his family waited. Outside, life continued as it always had. People returned to their homes. Merchants reopened their stalls. Children resumed their games. The mockers found new jokes to tell.
Noah's locked himself in that giant ship!
And still, the sky remained clear. Then, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, everything changed. Dark clouds gathered across the horizon. The wind began to rise. Thunder rolled across the heavens. Then came the rain. At first, only a few drops. Then more and more. Within moments, the heavens seemed to open. Rain poured down in torrents unlike anything the world had ever seen. But the rain was only the beginning. The fountains of the great deep burst forth. Far beneath the Earth's surface, vast reservoirs of water erupted upward with tremendous force. The ground shook. The earth trembled. Water surged from below as water fell from above. It was as though creation itself was coming apart. Rivers overflowed their banks. Streams became raging currents. Valleys disappeared beneath rising waters. Panic spread through the population. What had begun as confusion quickly became terror. People remembered Noah's warnings. They remembered the ark. They remembered the years he had spent building. And for the first time, many realized he had been telling the truth. Crowds rushed toward the vessel. Families ran through the storm. Voices cried out above the roar of the rain.
Save our children!
Noah!
Help us!
Open the door! Let us in! But the door remained shut. Not by Noah, by God. The opportunity to enter had passed. Inside the ark, Noah and his family could hear the storm raging outside. Thunder shook the vessel. Wind howled against its massive frame. Then came a moment none of them would ever forget. The ark moved. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly. Then the massive vessel lifted from the earth. The waters had carried it free. The ark began to rise, higher and higher, borne upon the floodwaters. Outside, the storm continued without mercy. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain fell. The waters increased greatly upon the earth. Cities disappeared beneath the waves. Roads vanished. Fields vanished. Entire landscapes were swallowed by the flood. Day after day, the waters continued to rise, higher, higher, higher still, until even the mountains disappeared beneath the surface. The world that humanity had known was gone. The earth had become an endless ocean stretching in every direction. And floating upon that vast expanse was a single wooden vessel. Inside were 8 people, and with them the living creatures God had preserved. Noah, his family, and the future of life on earth. The floodwaters prevailed over the world, but the ark remained afloat. And through the storm, God had not forgotten those who trusted him. The storm eventually passed. The thunder grew distant. The rain ceased. And for the first time in many weeks, a strange silence settled over the world. But the flood was not over. The waters still covered the earth. Inside the ark, life continued one day at a time. The animals needed constant care. Food had to be distributed. Living spaces had to be cleaned. The work never truly stopped. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. There were no roads to follow, no landmarks to guide them, no mountains visible on the horizon. Only water. Endless water stretching in every direction. The ark drifted upon a world that had become an ocean. Noah and his family had obeyed God. They had survived the flood, yet they still did not know when their journey would end. One day blended into the next, and through it all, they waited. Then Scripture records one of the most comforting statements in the entire story. But God remembered Noah. Not that God had forgotten him. The Creator of heaven and earth does not forget. Rather, it means that God was about to act on Noah's behalf. And so, the Lord caused a wind to pass over the earth. Slowly, the floodwaters began to recede. The fountains of the deep were closed. The rain from heaven was restrained. Little by little, the water level fell. At first, the change was impossible to see. Then, one day, after months upon the waters, the ark came to rest. Noah and his family felt it, a gentle but unmistakable stillness. The vessel was no longer drifting. It had settled upon solid ground. The ark had come to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Though they could not yet leave, hope had returned. The journey was not over. But for the first time since the flood began, Noah and his family knew they were moving toward a new beginning. Though the ark had come to rest upon the mountains of Ararat, Noah did not rush outside. The man who had obeyed God's command to enter the ark would also wait for God's command to leave it, and so he waited. As the days passed, the waters continued to recede. Then Noah opened a window in the ark and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth over the waters, searching for a place to rest. But Noah needed a clearer answer, so he sent out a dove. The small bird disappeared into the distance. Noah and his family watched and waited. Hours later, the dove returned. There was still nowhere for it to rest. The waters had not yet withdrawn enough. 7 days later, Noah sent the dove out again. Once more, the family waited. The bird vanished beyond the horizon. As evening approached, it finally returned. But this time, it carried something in its beak, an olive leaf, freshly plucked, alive. For a moment, no one spoke. The small leaf said more than words ever could. Life had returned to the earth. The floodwaters were retreating. The world was beginning to recover. After months of uncertainty, hope could now be held in Noah's hands. A simple olive leaf had become a sign that a new beginning was near. 7 days later, Noah released the dove once more. This time, it did not return. The family understood what that meant. The earth was ready. Then God spoke to Noah again.
Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you.
At last, the long journey had ended. The great door opened. Sunlight poured into the ark. Fresh air rushed inside. One by one, the animals emerged. Birds took to the sky. Animals spread across the land. Then Noah and his family stepped onto solid ground for the first time in more than a year. Before them lay a world unlike the one they had left behind. The flood was over. The old world was gone, and a new beginning had begun. Noah stood upon the earth and took a long look at the world around him. The mountains stretched into the distance. The air felt fresh and clean. Everything seemed new. But before building a home, before planting crops, before thinking about the future, Noah did something else. He worshipped. The man who had trusted God through decades of preparation, through the storm, and through months upon the waters, now gave thanks to the one who had preserved him. He built an altar to the Lord and offered sacrifices in gratitude. Then God spoke once more. I establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. It was a promise not only for Noah, not only for his family, but for every generation that would follow. Then God gave a sign of that covenant, a rainbow. Brilliant colors stretched across the sky, a reminder that judgment had passed, a reminder that mercy had been shown, a reminder that God keeps his promises. And every time a rainbow appears after a storm, it still points back to that moment, to Noah, to the ark, to the God who remained faithful. As Noah's descendants spread across the earth, they spoke one language and shared one purpose. But another story was already beginning. A story of ambition, a story of pride, a story of a tower that would rise toward the heavens, and one decision that would change human history forever. But that is a story for another day. Noah's story reminds us that faith is not simply believing when everything makes sense. It is trusting God when the path ahead is unclear. It is choosing obedience when others choose comfort. It is continuing to build when no one else understands why. Thousands of years later, Noah's example still challenges us to remain faithful, even when we stand alone. Thank you for joining us for this journey through one of the most remarkable stories in the Bible. If you have not subscribed yet, please do not forget to do so. It really helps us continue providing you with amazing videos like this. And until next time, thank you for watching Stories of the Olives.